Toastmaster, ladies and gentlemen. A politician standing at a lectern and giving a speech is a common sight, especially these days. But an uncommon sight would be two politicians from opposing political parties sharing the same stage and talking about how they intend to work together. That's just uncommon. It's practically unheard of in this day and age. But it's a sight that America needs to see now more than ever. Tonight, I'd like to ask for your support in urging the creation of a bipartisan broadcast, or a broadcast featuring both parties. I'll explain what it is, why we need it, and the impact it can have. Specifically, a bipartisan broadcast is a speech given once a year before a live national television audience, sort of like the State of the Union address. But instead of just having one politician speak, the bipartisan broadcast would be written and delivered by the highest-ranking Democrat and the highest-ranking Republican in government. According to the presidential line of succession, those two people today are President Barack Obama and Speaker of the House Paul Ryan. Now, instead of standing at separate lecterns, as if they were debating one another, the president and the speaker would instead sit at a table along the same side. They would look into the same camera, and they would take turns delivering passages from the same speech. The speech itself would be part progress report and part plan for the future. In the progress report section, the president and the speaker would detail all the things that both parties have been able to accomplish by working together in the past year. Now, if they can't think of anything, or if there have been too few things, they have to address that before a live national television audience. They would then segue into the plan for the future, in which they would outline specific goals that both parties agree to work on and achieve in the year ahead. By the time next year's bipartisan broadcast rolls around, they would have to account for every single one of those goals and tell the audience if they were accomplished or not. Overall, the broadcast, in both its appearance and the content, is meant to emphasize national unity. We need the bipartisan broadcast because, quite simply, our government doesn't work as well as it can. And when the government doesn't work as well as it can, we as taxpayers aren't getting our money's worth. And at the very least, that should concern us, if not frustrate us. One way you can measure how productive the government is to take a look at the number of bills, total number of bills Congress passes in a single year. According to the Pew Research Center, 2013 and 2014 were the two worst years in the past 4 decades for this measurement. One explanation for this is that both political parties have become more polarized or more sharply divided than they've ever been. The Washington Post tells us that the reason for this is because both parties have become more ideologically pure and less ideologically diverse. They said it used to go that you had people who considered themselves liberals, people who considered themselves moderates, and people who considered themselves conservatives in both the Democratic and Republican parties. But over the past 50 years, you have nearly all the people who identify themselves as liberals migrating over to the Democratic Party, and nearly all the people who identify themselves as conservatives migrating over to the Republican Party. And as a result, both parties are now entrenched at either end of the political spectrum, making it much more difficult for them to find ways to reach out to one another and compromise. And when you live in a country like ours, where everyone is entitled to their own opinion, is in fact celebrated for having their own opinion, but not everyone has the same opinion, compromise is key to getting things done. That's why the bipartisan broadcast is needed, because it is designed to get both parties to work together. Both the president and the speaker, their staffs and their colleagues, they have to get together months probably before the speech is delivered and hammer out what they want to cover and what they want to tell the American people they're working on. So at the very least, that should guarantee that some amount of legislation passes Congress because of all those goals outlined in the Plan for the Future section. Since both parties agree to it, they should be able to translate that into laws, raising the amount of measurable productivity. But in a broader sense, the bipartisan broadcast could help both parties cultivate better habits of simply getting together and working on problems and solving them. That's what West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin set out to do when he took office shortly after being elected in 2010. He arrived at the Senate and was just flabbergasted by how little opposing party members talked to one another. So according to Politico.com, he set out to have lunch regularly with his colleagues across the aisle, even meet with them after work to get things done. And he did this because he felt that once close relationships are built, you look for ways to work together more often. And so even though the bipartisan broadcast is just one speech, just getting together for that one speech could help engender those good habits. Overall, the bipartisan broadcast is an annual, nationally televised address featuring the top Democrat and top Republican in government. It's designed to get both parties to work together to make our government work better for us, for everyone involved. If enough people advocate for this idea, then perhaps one day the sight of two opposing politicians sharing the same stage and talking about how they intend to work together might not be so uncommon as it is now. Madam Toastmaster.